This article will be studied during the week of April 4th through 10th. Holy Spirit at work in creation. Theme text: By the word of Jehovah the heavens themselves were made, and by the spirit of his mouth all their army. Psalm 33:6. Paragraphs 1 and 2, Question A. How has man's knowledge of the heavens and the earth increased over time? Question B. What question requires an answer? When Albert Einstein published his special theory of relativity in 1905, he and many other scientists believed that the universe consisted of just one galaxy, our Milky Way. How greatly they underestimated the size of the universe. It is now thought that the heavens contain over 100 billion galaxies, some consisting of billions of stars. As ever more sensitive telescopes are used on Earth or put into orbit around it, the number of known galaxies keeps climbing. Just as scientific knowledge of the heavens was limited in 1905, so was knowledge of the Earth. True, people living a century ago knew more than their forebears. Today, however, the beauty and complexity of life and the terrestrial systems that sustain it are far better understood than they were at that time. And we will undoubtedly learn much more about the earth and the heavens in the years ahead. But especially is it appropriate to ask, how did all of this come to be in the first place? The answer to that question can be known only because the Creator has revealed it through the Holy Scriptures. The miracle of creation. Paragraphs 3 and 4. Question: How did God create the universe, and how do his works glorify him? How the universe came to be is explained in the Bible's opening words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. Starting with no pre-existing material, Jehovah used his Holy Spirit, his powerful active force, to create the physical heavens, the earth, and everything else in the universe. A human craftsman uses his hands and tools to make things, but God sends forth Holy Spirit to accomplish his great works. The Scriptures figuratively refer to Holy Spirit as God's finger, and the work of his hands, what Jehovah created by means of his Holy Spirit, brings him great glory. The heavens are declaring the glory of God, sang the psalmist David, and of the work of his hands the expanse is telling. Psalm 19:1. Indeed, physical creation testifies to the awesome power of God's Holy Spirit. How does it do so? God's limitless power. Paragraph 5. Illustrate the creative power of Jehovah's Holy Spirit. Our unimaginably vast universe gives evidence that Jehovah's power and energy are inexhaustible. Isaiah 40:26 reads, Raise your eyes high up and see. Who has created these things? It is the one who is bringing forth the army of them even by number, all of whom he calls even by name. Due to the abundance of dynamic energy, he also being vigorous in power, not one of them is missing. Modern science is aware that matter can be changed into energy and energy into matter. Our sun, a star, provides an example of matter being turned into energy. Every second, the sun converts about 4 million tons of matter into sunlight and other forms of radiant energy. The small fraction of that energy that reaches us is sufficient to sustain life on the earth. Obviously, tremendous power and energy were required to create not just the sun, but also all the other billions of stars. Jehovah possesses the energy that was needed, and much more. Paragraphs 6 and 7. Question A. Why can we say that God has used his Holy Spirit in an orderly way? Question B. What shows that the universe did not come about by chance? We are surrounded by evidence that God used his Holy Spirit in a very orderly way. To illustrate, suppose you had a box containing balls of different colors. You shake the box, thoroughly mixing the balls. Then you throw them out onto the ground all at once. would you expect the balls to land grouped according to color? The blue balls together, the yellow likewise, and so on? Of course not. Uncontrolled actions always tend to result in less order, not more. That fact is accepted as a fundamental law of nature. Yet, when we raise our eyes and telescopes heavenward, what do we see? We find an immense and highly ordered system of galaxies, stars, and planets, all moving with great precision. This could not be the product of chance or of an unplanned and uncontrolled cosmic accident. So we must ask, what force was originally employed in order to produce our orderly universe? We humans are limited in our ability to identify that force through scientific observation and experimentation alone. However, the Bible has identified it as God's Holy Spirit, the most powerful force in the universe. The psalmist sang, "By the word of Jehovah the heavens themselves were made, and by the spirit of his mouth all their army." Psalm 33:6. And with our eyes, we can see only a very small part of that army of stars as we survey the night sky. Holy Spirit and the earth. Paragraph 8. Question: how much do we really know about Jehovah's works? What we presently understand about nature is infinitesimal when compared with all there is to learn. As for the scope of our knowledge of God's creative works, the faithful man Job concluded, "Look, these are the fringes of his ways, and what a whisper of a matter has been heard of him." Job 26:14. Centuries later, King Solomon, an astute observer of Jehovah's creation, declared, "Everything God has made pretty in its time. Even time indefinite he has put in their heart, that mankind may never find out the work that the true God has made from the start to the finish." Ecclesiastes 3:11. Paragraphs 9 and 10. Question: God used what force when he created the earth, and what were some developments during the first 3 creative days? Jehovah has, however, revealed essential details about his works. For instance, the scriptures inform us that God's Spirit was active on the earth eons ago. Genesis 1:2 reads, "Now the earth proved to be formless and waste, and there was darkness upon the surface of the watery deep. And God's active force was moving to and fro over the surface of the waters. At that time, there was no dry land, no light, and apparently no breathable air at the earth's surface." The Bible goes on to describe what God did during a series of creative days. These are not 24-hour days, but are epochs. On the first creative day, Jehovah caused light to begin to appear at the earth's surface. That process would be completed when the sun and the moon later became discernible from the earth. On the second day, the atmosphere began to be formed. Earth then had water, light, and air, but still no dry land. Early on the third creative day, Jehovah used his Holy Spirit to produce dry land, perhaps harnessing powerful geologic forces to push continents up out of the global sea. There would be other astounding developments on the third day and during later creative periods. Holy Spirit and living creatures. Paragraph 11. Question: what is demonstrated by the complexity, symmetry, and beauty of living things? God's Spirit also produced highly organized works in the biological sphere of creation. By means of his Holy Spirit, during creative days 3 through 6, God created an astounding variety of plants and animals. Thus, living things provide countless examples of complexity, symmetry, and beauty that bespeak design of the highest level. Paragraph 12. Question A. DNA performs what function? Question B. What should we learn from the continuing successful function of DNA? Consider DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, one of the chemical mechanisms involved in passing on the characteristics of organisms from one generation to the next. All living things on the earth, including microbes, grass, elephants, blue whales, and humans, reproduce using DNA. Although the Earth's creatures differ widely, the code that controls many of their inherited characteristics is very stable and has served to maintain the distinction between basic kinds of creatures down through the ages. According to Jehovah God's purpose, the Earth's various organisms therefore continue to perform their functions in the complex web of life. This very effective, orderly arrangement provides further evidence that creation is the work of God's finger, or Holy Spirit. The climax of earthly creation